So we're back in our project, and what we want to do here is actually just reorganize things a little bit. And wherever we can, so it's going to open up public, our index.html file. Wherever we can, take code like this, and if it's possible, move it to an external file. And so we already have a JavaScript folder, and so I'm going to make a new file here, and I'm going to call it gist7132, I guess underscore mo8.js. Am I okay with that? I might take the underscore out for now. There. gist7132 mod8.js. Okay. Now there's nothing much in there. But what I'm going to do is go back to my index.html, and I'm going to take this function, cut it out, and put it into here. And then I'm going to get rid of the script tag. There. So that's looking okay. So you should probably fire up our server. And again, depending how you start, if I go up here, npm scripts is checked off. And that. Sometimes I notice that this doesn't show up on the menu until after I've clicked on a package JSON, and then it realizes, ooh, we have some scripts in here, and then it activates that menu choice. Not sure why, but I'm going to turn it back on. And on the bottom, I'll expand it, and I just want to fire up the test server. And so I'll click play. While that's firing up, I'm going to find Chrome on the Word desktop here, open it up. I'll know it's ready when I see that green text that talks about 127.0.1 on port 8080. There, so it's up now. So I'll go local host. That maps back to the IP address 127.0.0.1. And I'll go :8080. There. So it's found my project. It's up and running on my dev server. And I'm going to click me. And nothing happens. Or is it? We had it right into the console last time. So let's go take a look. Right click, inspect, and that. Oh, errors. Okay, this is on purpose. So we can open up the console. Usually you go to sources. Again, you can bring the drawer across if you want. So console drawer, so it's always on the bottom. Notice that it's the same message, so it just doesn't reprint it, it just tags it as it happened twice. And it says, hey, hello is not defined. So it's trying to run the hello function. So if I go back to elements here, it's trying to run it. Just need to expand that if it will let me. You can there you go. So it's trying to run hello, and it's not finding it, right? Because I put it in that file. And so what I need to do is, we'll go back to VS Code, is add a reference to it. And so then I go back to my index. And we typically do this up in the head, is you add a script, take the one on the bottom, script with a source. And then it's always interesting, I'm down in public, right? But the way I've organized this is at the same level as index is my JavaScript file. So we can try to go dot. So // see, and it finds the JavaScript folder, and it sees the GST. Less typing for you, and it gets the path right. Now, is that going to work? That is saved. It might take 2 shots here. I'll go back to Chrome. And I go to sources. Right now, there aren't any. I'm going to go refresh. Oh, it picked it up. JavaScript showed up. GST8132 worked. And so what we should see now is that when we run it, there's our console drawer, and we go click me, we see the message. Click me again. Okay, so that part's working. We're able to successfully move the function out of our index HTML file into a JavaScript file, and then reference that file. So what we're going to do now is add a bit more to our file. So I'm going to just close this area, go back to VS Code. And one thing I want to add to the form is a text area. So pick it off the list whenever you can. Might need these name and ID, we're going to come back and use these, but right now I'll make it, I guess, how many columns? 80 characters wide, concept. 10 is not bad, 10 high. That sort of thing. I might put a BR tag in. We could take a look at this because it's saved, and I'll show you the issue. When we refresh this, I want that button down below. So BR tag helps. Pick it off the list, go back, and that, if you got dual screens, it's a lot faster. We'll leave that there for now. It's okay. It's kind of tight on the bottom, but so far, so good. So we're going to, again, add some more stuff to our web page here. One thing you have a lot on forums are inputs. And we can, there's lots of different types of inputs pre-made. Do they have a text input? They should. There it is. I'll just grab that one. So we're going to come back again, set the names and IDs are going to be pretty important in that. But let's go again, take a look. What does that look like? Oh, not what I wanted. So, and that. So BR tags are your friend right now. And that. Go back. Ah, that looks better. I might put one more in. Okay. Yes, let's go back and do that. So BR. Couple BR tags. Okay, that looks good. Now, should probably give the user a heads up what they should be doing. So paragraph tag, and I'll tell the user to enter a message here. Again, doesn't hurt to refresh that to see, okay, that's about what I want. Now, one thing is I want the user, this is for us to play around with the DOM, the document object model. And so how do you take information on one part of the page, use it in another kind of concept. And we'll just go back, and what we're going to do is after the form, we're going to have a div. So divs are king. Divs are used to break the pages up into like chunks, and then you can update them separately. Then we should ask the question, what shows up here? Question mark. Again, autosave is on. Let's go refresh. And that. And so let's go back and take a look. One thing is, once we have some JavaScript in the background to change things, we need to be able to find these and that. Now, you can hunt by name or you can hunt by ID. I think we're going to choose to hunt by ID. It's more common as you go across realms. This is something you do on Android when you're trying to find a control. So we will give these controls a message. So this input, I'm going to call this user message. And I'll add an ID tag to the div so that we can find it. And this will be div message. Okay. So we're going to use those to use those IDs to hunt down the controls, grab what's in them, okay, and that. Now this is a battle between inner HTML and values. So when you're getting inner HTML, you're getting the text between the opening and closing tag. So in between here. Okay. On an input, you might notice that there isn't a closing tag. This is often called a self-closing tag. It's kind of like a lazy HTML. Notice that text area has a begin tag and then a end tag, and button has a begin tag and a end tag. Click me would be the inner HTML button. If we had text in here, right? Right, that text will show up. Let's go take a look at that in the text box, pre-populated. So add some text here. Okay, so the idea is the difference between inner HTML between an opening and closing tag. That's inner HTML. But our problem is the input tag is self-closing. So there, in this case, we could say, well, there isn't any inner HTML. And so what you typically do is on these types of controls, you hunt down the value. What is the value of the control? What is the text that the user has typed into a control? So sometimes you're hunting for inner HTML, and sometimes you're hunting for value. So what we're going to do now is change this up a little bit. So when someone clicks on the button, we're going to run a function called update div. That doesn't exist, so div. So let's go make that exist. So I'm going to take this and we'll call this update div. I'm going to change this to and get rid of this. These end of line comments can go. They are old code. Get rid of the one up here as well. So one thing I should do is let's just test this, right? Throw a bunch of code in here, and I don't even know if this is working yet. Not a good idea. So we'll go back. We'll do a refresh and click me. Did it work? Inspect. So if we see inside update div, hey, we got into that function. So there's hope that this is going to work. Now the idea is we need to find those controls. So we need to find the find element by ID is a way to do that through the document. So we need to find the input, and it always helps to know what did I call it. So I called it here user message. That's the text I'm going to, or the name or ID I'm going to use to find this control, and I'm going to find div as well. Okay, so go back and write the code for that. So the first thing we want to do is get, I guess, a reference to the controls, what it would be called. So I'm going to make a var, and I'm going to call this user. I'm going to call it MSG for short message. Is going to equal to document. So document dot find element typically by ID is what we're after, or no, actually get. I'm thinking Android, so we'll go get element by ID. You can also get it by name. ID is meant to be unique. You can have a bunch of controls with the same name in that. And then we got to put in what we want the control to be. So this is user message. Sometimes it's better just to go back and actually copy this, because it's really easy to make a typo and be getting null back. So that conceptually should get us the input. I'm also going to make another var div MSG. We'll do the same technique, document, get element by ID, get element by ID. And I wouldn't chance it, just click back. Let's grab this text so we don't have any typos that causes extra debugging time. So console.log, that you're inside, get the element by ID for the user message, that should be good, and that. And then, so then what we want to do, right, is say that the div's inner HTML is now equal to whatever the user typed into the input. Okay, so we would go div message dot inner HTML is equal, so that's the text between the tags, is equal to user message dot value. So we're just going to have to trust me on that one. In that. So let's give this a try. Might as well get back and give this a shot. So does this work? We could be in a debugging session pretty quick, and we'll see. Oh no, it worked. We got lucky on that time. So what's happening is we're taking the value of this input control and using that value as the inner HTML of the div tag. So that's actually working out okay in there. Wouldn't hurt to have some comments in here for sure. So we can put that in. Set the div message to the user's message. It's kind of what's going on in that. And that's the magic line there that swaps the value for the inner HTML. But you do have to go hunt these down. So a lot of times on web pages in these styles of apps is you're hunting for some type of control or some area on the page like a div, and you need to make a change to it. So far this is looking pretty good. So let's do a little bit of review of what happened. So let's take a look at this. On the assignment, we will possibly, starting out, we're going to have some JSON here and use it to populate a select list so that we can zoom a map in that. But how would you get at the JSON that was in here as one technique? Well, you'd have to hunt down this particular control, and in this case, because it's going to be the text between the tags, it's going to be the inner HTML. Okay, so if you need the text between the tags, it's the inner HTML. If you need the value out of a control, a self-closing form control, then you get the value in that. So it all depends what you're after and what you're trying to do. Sometimes you will go after the inner HTML, and sometimes you will go after the value of control in that. But just to review, what did we do here? We've added a bunch more form controls, and we looked at some interactivity, like on a sort of a single page app, some people will call it, where we can talk to different controls, get the user to enter information, and get the values out of those controls and use them elsewhere on the page. We also took out a script that was embedded in the HTML and put it into an external file. Okay, and that way we can stop our the crossover of HTML and code in the same area. Also stop our index HTML from getting bloated. Try to keep it as clean as possible. But that's it for now.